Evet. Şimdi niye gülümsediğimi belki tahmin ediyorsunuz.
Perhaps you wonder why I'm smiling. When the prompters come up, it's easier to speak. On the other hand, if there's a mistake on there, if there's an error, then you need to have your backup. I looked at the prompter. The writing is upside down. So I'm glad that I have my backup with me. So what matters most is what's in your mind. If you're totally dependent on something else, it might be the end of it. Come and take a look from here. Read that. I like the classical method sometimes, but of course this is easier and it is better for the audience as well to establish eye contact. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to the 4th Bosphorus Summit, organized by International Cooperation Platform. It's a great source of happiness and honor for me to deliver the honorary opening speech. I know that we have valuable speakers and guests from abroad as well. Welcome all. Starting from the antique civilizations, in the center of Eurasia, Istanbul has been a bridge between cultures, and it has become the center for trade and finance. And we have been holding a number of meetings, summits, congresses in Istanbul, and we are at one of these wonderful events. The International Cooperation Platform has become institutionalized, and it has become a center of sharing of knowledge and ideas. Mr. Selami Coşkun and Mehmet Büyükökşi have put great efforts into this, and this platform is becoming stronger by day in a global competition of Middle East and North Africa, and the global sustainability competitiveness will be discussed in this summit. Distinguished guests, at the first meeting of the International Cooperation Platform in 2010, they have underlined that information is reaching people at an utmost speed these days. For sustainable development and welfare, we need to have peace, good governance, and information. So, there is a bond, an unbreakable bond between these three factors. Within this framework, I would like to make a few comments on the recent developments. In the past 3 years, in the northern part of Mediterranean, there have been certain events, a certain crisis, both in terms of trade, finance, and politics. On the other hand, there have been uprising in the populations in the states, and these uprising has started a restructuring of the state and structuring of the state. We know well the sorrow of wars the sorrow of poverty. We fully understand what they feel because we have experienced the same difficulties, both emotionally and financially. On the other hand, we need to understand that we cannot exclude finance and politics from this change, this transformation process in the world. Firstly, a double pole has ended, but we do not know what the new structure will present for us. Right now, the political and finance around the world is being restructured. Asia has started to regain its strength. China, India, Russia, and Turkey have become the rising stars, the center of attention in this process. Over 90% of the world's economy is being produced by the developing countries. Middle Eastern and Northern African states are in search for a new status for themselves in the global finance and economy. The micro trend lately has been focused around global changes in finance and global trade. Compared to 30 years ago, there is a boost in global trade. And there are global trade agreements among countries, and various states have become dependent on each other. As a result, poverty has risen, and the distribution of welfare, the distribution of income has surfaced among different countries, and let alone that within the same country, regionally. Unrest among the society. And I believe that these underlie the uprising in these lands, in this geography. And we need to remember that we're living in a century that we are largely affected from each other. The increase in the price, the cost of production, and the number of infectious diseases around the world set big problems. Of course, developing countries are highly affected from these factors. A Tunisian street vendor who sets fire in the street actually starts this in the protection and maintenance of their honor and their economy, while making full benefit of globalization. We need to fight against distribution of income and distribution of welfare around the world. In my speech 3 years ago, I talked of some of the ways, methods the states have been using to overcome these problems, and that it was not sufficient. I will repeat it today. We need the support from NGOs, from the societies. In other words, we all need to be aware of what's happening around us, and we need to be sensitive towards these issues. These global obstacles are most effective in Middle East and Northern Africa. And 3 years ago, a transformation process has initiated, and the peoples expectations of freedom, equity have not been met.
A decent representative need is still a continuing one, which is going to be fully in line with the dignity of human beings. But 3 years ago, we highlighted that this legitimate administration is not sufficient enough to meet the expectations of these peoples. And I also highlighted that there is a need to meet the transparency, the needs for transparency and welfare and equality. And I said that this would be mainly based on the economic indications. In this 350 million people's of a population, the growth rate has only been 0.5%. 60% of the population in this geography is below the age of 25. And within a decade, an additional 50 million employment has to be created. And more than 55 million people lives under the line of poverty still. In addition to this, we obviously see that the status quo is never sustainable or can never continue anymore. Now, as it's been stated in the report, in 2002, the three elements are the reasons for being lagging behind. It's about the gap in information and the gap in terms of participation in social and economic life, and of course the deficiencies in terms of freedoms. The 21st century is the century that is meeting democracy with the principles comes out from the Arab Spring, and in fact the Arab Spring in itself is a historical opportunity in this regard. And after this process being initiated, a relative progress has been managed in terms of the freedoms, and hopefully there are going to be promising improvements in other sectors as well. And to overcome the lacking of information, there is a need to take some action. Together with all of these understandings, I have to say that not all the cultures in this region are the same. Not always the expectations are always the same. So we have to be aware of it. We have to be aware of the internal dynamics of each and every country, and each and every country therefore has to adjust its pace accordingly. The free trade understanding in West has been a process, in fact, that has been taking place in centuries. Democracy is therefore not going to be dominant in a region all of a sudden in a week's time or in a few days. So it requires to improve itself within time. So today, within those multi-party systems, even in those countries that are administered by democracy, we still that improvement is an ongoing process which is limitless. Therefore, I think the awareness of the situation will tell us the need for time in Arab countries as well. So the critical point at this context is the democratic process in North Africa and Middle East to go on undisruptedly. So what's important, especially for the leaders of opinion, is to be able to direct this kind of a transformation in this right direction, and to have the
Bu bölgede göz ardı edilmeyecek bir diğer önemli dinamik
and to have the necessary instinct. Therefore, in terms of the construction of the state nations, the ethnicity and the traditional behaviors has been all under pressure. However, today we see that it's going to be again on the surface. Those identities that have been pressurized are today getting stronger in terms of the ideas based on ethnical origins. So regardless of the ethnicity and origin, everyone has to feel themselves safe. And in order to do so, what has to be done is going to be decided by the countries in that region. Therefore, certain attention has to be given on certain topics. Primarily, in terms of belonging to an ethnicity or to a sect, is something that has to be observed in a long run, which means that you're going to be either in a position of not winning towards the ethnicity, or there is going to be a possibility of a winning situation where the partnership will be put in place. Well, in fact, as you will know, conflict never ends. And a conflict can always come up due to various reasons, and especially in a region like Middle East, where lots of people coming from different variety of religion or variety of ethnicity or sects, it is possible to see that there is always a potential risk of separation and a risk for conflict. And this doesn't have any end. This can continue forever. And I believe that the countries in Middle East have already paid a big cost for this. Now, in this regard, instead of these kinds of conflicts, the geography in Middle East have to embrace all of these diversities and consider it as an enrichment, and has to respect each other and tolerate each other in order to become one and integrated. Only by then, I think the energy and the potentials and the values will enabled to reach to a level of development and welfare. Otherwise, all the resources will be wasted, and all the other resources will be spent for useless things, and some very important problems will come out that may have a potential to last for a long time. So we have to learn our lessons from history in this regard. The cost of the first choice is about the fault lines, based on fault lines of ethnicity and origin. I think it's about the problems that we currently see in Syria. It's the reason of those problems, and it's costed the lives of more than 10,000 people. And this internal conflict is an indication of making the first scenario applicable. The second scenario is about the strengthening of the partnership and collaboration within the region. To eliminate the risks in Middle East and Northern Africa is a key for regional cooperation. And the problems in this region, therefore, have to be solved by the leaders of the region. And if it is not done by them, the other leaders of other parts of the world will decide upon how to solve these problems. And we've already witnessed how these things happened in the history. Now, what we have to do at an initial stage is to end the internal conflicts immediately, and to take steps in order to provide solutions through local administrations. When this is possible, all the countries that are able to maintain their peace will be the protectors of the regional peace as well. So this will enable, in fact, the Northern Africa and Middle East to take their well-deserved status in the world's peace as well. And as for the third issue, by keeping this perspective live, I think there is a need for an architecture of cooperation and partnership as well. Essentially, I think what's important is to destroy and to eliminate the weapons of mass destruction in Middle East, and this is something that I'm always highlighting in every kind of a platform. And I think, and I have to encourage all the countries in the state to give support to this idea. So while creating a new structure or a new architecture in this world, I would like to highlight the balance between freedom and rights. And this is the key for development. At this point, by using the excuses of imaginary risks, to go for other actions is not going to be for the benefit of all the nations in this region. To compromise over freedoms for security is something that would bring the risk of losing belief in democracy. So these four aspects that I'm trying to highlight require diligent interest and diligent steps to be taken. Only by then the Northern Africa and Middle East countries will be able to reach to a rapid progress, a rapid development. The Middle Eastern countries have their own richnesses and they have their own resources. They have thousands of kilometers of borders with Mediterranean, and these are the countries that are close to Europe. Therefore, they have a huge potential. However, this is a fact which is applicable all around the world. Stability and security and regional solidarity is required. Regardless of what part of the world you're looking at, it's not possible to talk about economic development or welfare where there is no security at all. In the most chaotic part of the world, in the regions where there are people fighting with each other for centuries, after the stability is restored, economic welfare has been achieved and development has been achieved. Therefore, the first thing to do is in order to restore peace and happiness of all the population in this region, and in order to provide welfare to the next generations and to enable the next generations to use the resources of this geography for their benefit, is depending on stability. And of course, the way that goes to this way is something based on the rational leadership of the leaders. And we have good and bad examples in history in terms of these kinds of leaders. So these rich social resources and human resources in this region will, at the end, make these regions achieve these goals. Distinguished participants, this platform, I believe, will accelerate these kinds of understandings and will accelerate the steps to be taken in this regard, and will give a way to make an agenda on these kinds of opinions, especially for politicians and leaders coming from this region. And I believe that these are going to pose recommendations of great importance. That is why I believe that this conference is very valuable. At the beginning, I was just a person who was making a speech in this Bosphorus summit, but now it's under my auspices. I'd like to encourage you, urge you to speak about all of these things very openly, and I would like to urge you to come up with new ideas so that we can also show to the world that we're going to be able to solve the problems with our own will, and we're going to find the right direction based on our own will, and we're going to be able to make our population and people happy. I'd like to once again welcome you all, and I would like to thank and congratulate everyone who has contributed to the strengthening of this platform. Thank you very much. I wish you success.